Hello everyone, today we have on a very special guest, Mr. Greg Bolen. He is a deputy at the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and a teacher at Carroll County High School. Mr. Bolen, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. You're a very popular teacher at the high school and a lot of kids look up to you, so I'm sure they'll be excited to hear this and hear your life story.
Well, I hope so.
Well, my first question is, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up here in Carroll County. I've lived here all my life, mostly in the town of Hillsville. For a brief moment, I lived in the Gladesboro community. I started off there.
Okay.
We lived on a dairy farm. That's how I got started.
Okay. Did you go to Gladesboro Elementary?
Yes, I went 1 year at Gladesboro Elementary. I was a Gator.
Yep, I went to Gladesboro, so.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Exciting to hear. Yeah, I interviewed Mr. Scott Sherrill, a
Yes.
couple of weeks ago, and his mom is the secretary there, and he went there.
All right, I like Mr. Sherrill, so that makes me think more of him now.
Yeah, and then did you transfer to Hillsville Elementary School after?
Yes, I went to the Hillsville Elementary School when it was located on Oak Street. Over here, it's where the Ray Center's at now.
Yeah, and then Carroll Intermediate, where the middle school is now.
Yeah, the Hillsville Elementary at that time was kindergarten through 6th grade. But by the time I got to 4th grade, they moved the 5th and 6th grade up to the middle school. So at one point at the middle school, it was 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. And when I got out of 4th grade, went to the 5th grade, I attended 5th through 9th at it was called HIS then, Hillsville Intermediate School.
Yeah, and then you did 10th through 12th here at the high school.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you play any sports growing up?
Yes, I played football, baseball, basketball, but when I got to the high school range, I gave up everything except basketball because I was trying to concentrate and I really wasn't the best student when I got here in the high school ranks. I was still out having fun and trying to commit to something, but I felt like I could do basketball, but it was hard to juggle all three and schoolwork.
Yeah, no, that is challenging. Before we interviewed, you briefly mentioned to me that you were a professional wrestler for a time.
Yes.
Did you wrestle in high school?
No, I never wrestled in high school. I wanted to, but wrestling season back then is the same time as basketball season,
yeah.
and I think it's still like that. So I had to make a hard choice. Yeah, I was a big wrestling fan growing up as a kid. I remember turning on the TV and seeing these, hearing the sounds, the bumps and stuff, the thuds of them being slammed on the mat, and then I heard this noise, and it's funny because that noise has followed me throughout my adult life too, because I turned around and I heard this, woo, and it was Ric Flair, and so from the time I was probably 4 years old, I was a Ric Flair fan.
Mr. Thompson, a couple of years ago, when his son graduated, at graduation, he did a Ric Flair, and then the whole graduating class did a Ric Flair.
Yeah, that was neat. 3 claps and a Ric Flair.
Yeah,
Yep.
And they did at the basketball games too. We haven't brought that back yet. But
I know, we need to.
Yeah,
Like I said, I've always been a Flair fan. He was been in wrestling, when I got started in wrestling, I mean, it was like, it was just by happenstance. I took my son at the time, who was probably 7 years old, to a indie wrestling match. And indie is the independent scenes, the different little companies that kind of pop up throughout the regions and stuff. It's more like the way wrestling used to be when I was growing up as a kid. Right now it's dominated by the WWE, these major companies, and I think AEW, but back then it was all regional. You might have had probably 200 different companies, and the wrestlers had more opportunities to go work at these different areas. And back then it was before the internet, before a lot of cable TV, so they could go to this region and work. And then once, the fans kind of got tired of their stuff, then they could go to another region and be brand new all over again and get started. So, yeah, I went to that indie scene. I went down here to Mount Airy.
okay.
And one of the promoters came up to me, saw me in the stands, and I had on a wrestling shirt. I can't remember what it was, but he came up and he said, "Are you a wrestler?" And I said, "No, I'm just a fan. I just brought my son." And he said, "Well, I like your look." He said, "You need to give this a try." And because of my size, I don't know, a lot of people know, but when I hit a growth spurt. I used to be really, in school up through until about 8th grade, I was real short. And I'm going to use the word fat. I was a fat kid. I was short, fat, had straight blonde hair. And then over that summer, I grew like 4 inches.
Yeah.
My hair turned brown and got curly. But by ninth grade, I was 6'2", 170 pounds. So it was funny, the transformation that took place. But I only grew 1 more inch after that when I got to high school. But he liked my size and look, and he said, "Hey, you need to try this out." And I said, "No." I was just laughing. I thought he was just kind of joking. Yeah. But they were having another show somewhere, and he said, "You come to the show," and he goes, "Just bring your son. I'll let him run the ropes and jump in the ring and stuff like that." And so my son was like, "Please, Dad, please." You know how I would have been too. So I thought, well, I'll do that. And he goes, "Yeah, just come take a few bumps." And bumps is what it is when you fall on the mat or you get body slammed or, suplexed. And so I did. I showed up early. We run the ropes and did all this. And the promoter just really liked my look and I kind of took a natural,
sure,
had the natural instincts and the natural progression with it. Playing sports all the years that I played sports helped me. I was kind of athletic and stuff, and I climbed rocks, trees, swung on grapevines. I did all the stuff that kids, I wish they still did, but
different time now.
Yeah, it was. And so he just liked me. And then he said, "I will train you if you come to work for my company for free," which training at that time to be a professional wrestler was like $3,000-4,000.
Wow.
So he liked that much, and I was like, and I thought about it, and like I said, I think I was telling you the other day when we were just talking in general conversation, 7th grade, I wrote a paper. The teacher said, "You got to pick 3 things." She said, "You have to have an A, B, and C plan, 3 things you want to be when you grow up." Now, this is 7th grade, and I don't know nothing from nothing. I'm just living my day.
Yeah.
But I knew I'd always had interest. I wanted to be a police officer, a professional wrestler, and a teacher. I wanted to be a police officer because I had this one police officer in town in particular, one of my friend's dads. His name was Carl Harmon.
Okay.
He was really good to us kids. He would stop, talk to us, ask us how our day was, didn't treat us, like we were suspects or y'all kids right here causing trouble. He was really nice. Plus, he was really big. He was about 6'4", just a big guy. He always reminded me, some of your listeners probably know this, but James Arnaz played Matt Dillon on a show called Gunsmoke before my time, but I got to see some of it. It lasted for like 20 years, but he played this marshal in the Old West. It was a Western. And so that's who he reminded me of. The professional wrestler, of course, all my years watching wrestling and Ric Flair. I had several others. Tully Blanchard was one of my favorites. The Road Warriors and stuff like that. And then as far as teaching, I had some teachers that really, really were big influences on me. And so that prompted me to kind of want to get into that too.
So what was the training like for wrestling? You mentioned that you had to do it, you got to do it for free because you were working for the company. But I imagine it's a lot of weightlifting, obviously some of the more physical, like practicing the flips and the picking up. But
now, thankfully, the weightlifting, I'd done that as a hobby.
Sure.
I started that when I was probably about 31.
Yeah.
When I got to, because 2 weeks before I turned 30, you could have locked me up in probably an asylum because I was clinically depressed. I was like, growing up, I was thinking, man, 30 is old.
Yeah.
30 is old. And I was like, there's no way I'm turning 30, because I've always been youth-oriented and, inspired. So when I was turning 30, it really just kind of depressed me. My wife was like, what are you doing? I said, she goes, it's almost like you think life's over. And in a sense, at that moment, it kind of was. I was like, my youth is
gone.
It's gone, But I was like, 30's going here. So I decided to get in shape and try to do better. Because my dad, I talked to him one day, and he said, you got a good job. I was working at the Hillsville Police Department at that time. I was had my house, my kids. And he said, you got all that stuff. He said, but if you don't have your health, what good are you? Yeah. So working as a police officer, we don't work the best hours. Yeah. So I was working a lot of third shifts, drinking coffee, eating honey buns, and I know everybody thinks cops eat donuts. But late at night, there's not many donuts, but honey buns. Yeah. So I had got up to about 270 pounds of bad weight And I was never that big, you know. I was always a big guy, but never that.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I decided I needed to get in shape and a little better, so I started working out. That was my hobby. When wrestling came along, I had a step ahead of most of the guys who were starting. I think I had about, there were 6 in the training class, we call it, when we first started. So they would do some weightlifting. We would learn how to run the ropes, which was most cardio. And a lot of people, casual fans watching wrestling, do not realize how intense running those ropes are. Because you're supposed to take 2 steps and let your back fall off the ropes. I know I'm trying to do a visual here on my podcast. But you've got to do let your back lay flat out to hit the ropes, because the ropes are just metal cable with rubber coating over the top. They hurt really bad. So if you hit them on the side near your ribs, it just tears it up. It just bruises it, and it becomes tender, and you just cannot touch them. So running those ropes, we learn how to run the ropes. What we do is take bumps. That's where you learn how to fall safely on the mat, like if you're taking a body slam, if a suplex, power bomb, or just learning to do a flip coming off. And at my size, where I was 6'3", 240 at the time, I could do things that some of the big guys couldn't. So I could do the flips coming over the ropes and off of the top turnbuckle. I copied the Undertaker. I know a lot of people know who the Undertaker is, professional wrestler. I would do his where he would get up and walk the top rope. They call it going old school. Only what I would do is I would get on the top rope and I'd walk all the way around the ring. I would walk on the top rope on the top square, which that was kind of my signature thing. I copied him, and then the fans really liked it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We would do running, the training for that. We'd do some cardio, some running. Thankfully, like I said, I was ahead in that area. The 2 toughest things that a professional wrestler or an independent wrestler needs to learn how to do is take the chops. You see Ric Flair do those chops, and it hits somebody in the chest with an open hand, and the crowd goes, woo, you know, because he's kind of known for that. That's his signature move. Those are
painful.
Yeah, painful. And a lot of people think, you know, like they say wrestling is fake, it's all this. It's choreographed. You know, I'm not pulling a curtain back here. In the old days, you kept what was called, wrestling has its own language, you kept what was called kayfabe. You couldn't tell about the business, you know, only the guys working in the business would know the secrets of it, so you did not go outside that. Now WWE has kind of pulled back the curtain, and everybody pretty much knows about the wrestling business. It's choreographed, the matches are predetermined. You know, we know we go in and meet with the promoter, and he tells us, hey, in the different languages, like my character's name was Kenny. He said, Kenny, you're going over tonight, which meant I was going to win. And then it was up to me and the other wrestler I was working with to come up with the match. We would come up with like a beginning, a couple little spots, and then we would do an ending. But the rest of it we pretty much called in the ring. You know, as you're leaning into somebody, a lot of people, you can see them whispering each other or something. If you're doing it right, the crowd can't tell. But that class of 6, taking those chops, they would line you up in a corner and pull your shirt over your face, and you would just have to stand there, and all the wrestlers who was at that company would just line up and come, pow, you know, give you the chops. And your chest, at the end of the first session, my chest was bleeding, you know, from all the chops. I know it sounds barbaric, or it sounds, why would anybody subject? Yeah, but it's just kind of you know, some people call it hazing. To me, it was kind of a rite of passage. I needed to, this is how I earn my due, pay my dues, earn my spot. You know, if you got respect with them, and sometimes, and life's tough. I don't care, in every aspect, life is tough, whether it's doing this or not, you make choices. I made a choice, this is what I wanted to, and I wanted to commit to the business. So those chops were really painful. It's unlike anything else. I had a rough childhood growing up, so I wasn't used to anything painful. That made me pretty tough. But the chair shots, you know, where they take the metal chairs, you've got to learn how to spread your back out as wide as the surface area. You know? But it still hurts. I don't care who you are, a metal chair slamming against skin and muscle tissue and bone. And every once in a while, somebody's going to get it wrong. and hit you with a different errant shot, and it's going to hurt. But I had a former, break off just a little bit. I know I'm going to try to go out. I don't mean to go all over the place.
Go ahead.
But I had a former teacher, Jay McCraw. He was one of the really big influences on me in school. He worked at the middle school as a math teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm a notoriously poor math student, you know. So I really, there's been days he'd just throw his hands up because I was a challenge. But I told him I'm friends with him to this day. He's that big of an influence. He was really just like a second father to me. Yeah. He's done so much for me. I invited him to one of my matches, and he was telling me, he goes, all those chair shots are fake. They're so fake. He said, they're just not real. I said, you come to the match and I'll show you. He goes, I'll be there. So he showed up. We had a really good crowd and a really good crowd for like an independent wrestling promotion is, I mean, if you can get 80 people in the stands, is a good crowd. I think we had about 200, 250 that night. Wow. So I was talking to the guy I was going to wrestle, and I said, hey, at some point, I want us to spill out of the ring. It's called taking a powder. And I said, we'll go out near the crowd. And I showed him, I said, you see that guy sitting over there? And he said, yeah. I said, I want you to grab a metal chair, and I want you to light me up. I said, you just light me up with it. I said, because he doesn't think that we really take those. And the wrestler I was wrestling at that time, he'd been in it several years, really good wrestler, really good worker, protected his opponents that he had. You know, that's a big part of the wrestling thing, is protecting your opponents. Yeah. His name was Brian Danzig. That was his wrestling name. So anyway, I spill out over there. I'm near Jay, and Brian grabs a metal chair during the match, and he just starts onslaught. Yeah, hitting me in the back, hitting me, you know, lower back, upper back, in the arm. You know, the only thing we don't like is if they hit you in the head, you got to put your hand up, because
it can be dangerous.
Yeah, and some people's like, well, you know, if you're standing there and they're going to hit you in the head, and I'm like, well, most people, I don't care what it is. If somebody swings at you, natural instinct, you're going to put your hand up. Mm-hmm. So that makes it a little bit realism. But yeah, he lit me up with that chair, and I fell like in Jay's lap, and I whispered to him, and I said, is that real enough for you? He just patted me on the back, and he loved that because I made him kind of part of the show. Yeah. But yeah, that's some of the training. You know, it's physical. But then there's so much more that goes into it, like in-ring psychology. Mm. You know, you got to learn. Basically, professional wrestling is a match, is telling a story. Mm-hmm. You've got to get in that ring, and you've got to tell a story that the crowd wants to hear, or you're really doing it out.
Like art.
Yeah, it's visual. It's a visual storytelling. And to get that down, that takes a lot of work. That takes either, and I always say this, either you've got it or you don't. Mm-hmm. It's just like being in police work. You know, I always say I can talk to anybody, whether they're 8 years old or 80. You know, I can get to a level to relate to them. Yeah. Wrestling's like that too. Talking, you can't train somebody to really have that knack to talk. It's either
you have it or you don't.
Yeah, and so with that come a little natural to me. That was good and I credit just watching wrestling all my life. Mm-hmm. You know, I credit also being born in a generation without cell phones, and we had video games, but they were in arcades. But it allowed us to use our imaginations. Mm-hmm. You know, and I give credit to a lot of that now, because I knew how to do that, because I could suspend, you know, reality for a little bit, and, you know, get lost in that world and become something that I, you know, wasn't. It's just playing a character. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really a great experience, life experience. Yeah. It was just fun, living out a childhood dream to become that. Definitely. And I did it for, I think, about 14 years.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
The funny thing was, I was a wrestler at the same time I was a police officer. Mm-hmm. But I kept the two lives separate. Nobody really knew it. And I wore a mask in the ring. You know, it was it was interesting. But some people could tell. I would see some people, like if we were wrestling down in Greensboro one time, and it actually had some local fans from Hillsville.
Really?
Yeah, and I went up and I said their name and stuff, and they just, you know, they were looking like, how does he know this? You know, and that was just a lot of fun. But the training was really, really intense. I think I trained for we had some, it's just like different achievement levels. Mm-hmm. I think I trained for about 4 months. We had others who trained for 5 and 6 and stuff like that. We had one kid down there that he just trained for about 2 months. He was just, he picked it up so easy. I was just in awe of him. Mm-hmm. He was really good. He was young. He was about 18 at the time. And right now he's actually wrestling in that company AEW.
Yeah. Wow.
That's on TNT.
Yeah.
Hangman Adam Page. That's who that kid was, and he picked it up. Out of that class, he went on to major. He wrestled in Ring of Honor, and he's in AEW. And there were two brothers that I wrestled with that we started off in that class. They were called the Bravado Brothers then. One of them has since retired. He doesn't wrestle anymore. The other one is actually in what's called NXT, which is a WWE developmental.
Okay, so minor league kind of.
Yeah, he's right there. He's just one step away, making the jump to the main roster and all that. I'm trying to remember his ring name, and I cannot remember it at this time. Chase something. He's got a little faction called Chase University or whatever.
Wow.
Andre Chase, that's it.
Okay.
But I was in the same class as them, and I just think it's kind of cool that they went on and chased their dreams. Yeah, now where they're at, it's really cool. Yeah. And I was the old guy. I got started late. I was in my 30s when I got started in wrestling. And
did you ever think about going further like they are?
I did. Unfortunately, at that time, I had 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know, my youngest son, like I said, he's
a lot of time right there.
7. And it doesn't pay anything when you're doing independent scene. You're just you're going, it's basically a hobby.
Right.
You're footing a lot of the bill. You're paying your gas. Some places, like if your character is good enough. Now, if your character is over and the fans really like you and the promoter wants you to come work their shows, like different promoters I wrestled throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia. I'm trying to think where else we went. Mainly that. I wouldn't go any farther. You know, it was just basically the East Coast.
Driving distance.
Yeah. But you would go there, and some of the promoters would buy your gas to get you to the show, give you a free T-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a sucker for a free T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
They would feed you, but you were responsible for your hotels. I've never had any promoter ever pay, you know, your stay.
That's a lot.
The biggest payday I ever got as a professional wrestler or independent wrestler going up and down the road, I received $250 to go to Johnson City, Tennessee. But I had to do a dual role. I came out as my main character, and then somebody didn't show up to the show, so they wanted me to come out and play another, which at the time my main character was what they call a baby face, the good guy.
Okay, yeah.
And so the next one they wanted me to play was a heel character, which is the bad guy. And I really had fun playing that.
Yeah.
It was so much fun being a heel.
It's got to be hard on your body doing back-to-back, especially if you're getting whopped with a chair and bopped and banged everywhere.
It really is, and that's where a lot of people, I don't think the wrestlers get the respect that they deserve. Yeah. And I mean, even I did not give them the kind of respect that they deserved. I was like, it's, you know, when I was growing up, I thought it was, you know, back then I didn't really know choreographed. You know, I was like everybody else. I called, it's fake,
yeah.
And everybody tell me it's fake, and I would defend it. No, it's not. There's some parts of it, you know. And I used to go up here to high school and watch matches. That was a cool thing. My favorite wrestlers, like I see on TV now, used to come to Carroll County High School. They used to come to the Rescue Squad buildings. You know, it was more regional. It wasn't as big mainstream, and wasn't the billion-dollar industry it is now. Yeah. So you could come up here and watch some of your favorite wrestlers, and I'd actually sneak, you know, back into the boys' locker room and stuff, because that's where the wrestlers got changed. And I met some of my favorite wrestlers, and I got cussed out by one because I was back there. Yeah. But that was a thrill. I was like, all right. Yeah. He was a heel and he cussed me, so that was my claim to fame.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, do you have videos from those days?
I have a couple videos somewhere. The different promotions I worked for, they all went. One company I worked for, they went really international, and they've got like different banners, different companies, and they all tied in. And he locked his library up. He was on YouTube, but I have some videos of some matches and different things. I'll dig them up, but I can show you sometime.
Sure, yeah.
I've got some pictures and stuff too to show.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, it's. I didn't bring a camera to record my matches because there's like a kind of unwritten rule. You don't do your own thing in wrestling, you know. You don't promote yourself. You're not a self-promoter as far as that goes, but you really need to. You know, this day and time, everybody's got a brand.
Yeah.
You know, everybody promotes their brand
Shoe
and all that
deals and
stuff.
clothes and
And there's there's nothing wrong with that if they can make it work and do all that. But in wrestling, it was kind of like breaking tradition, you're bucking tradition for the old guys. If you've got matches, if the company wants to tape them and they've got the matches, that's fine, which they did.
Yeah.
But he locked his library up, and once in a while I can call him and say, hey, can you send me this video? It will go no farther than me. And he trusts me being a police officer and stuff. He knows I'm not going to betray him and let it out. And it's not that those videos are like everybody's wanting them and wanting to put them on, it's not that. It's just that he's protecting his library, because at some point in time, he can sell that off over to, I think, the affiliation he's got in England. He could sell that library off and actually acquire some money. No big riches, but it would be up in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So he's just, I can understand him wanting to maintain it.
Definitely.
But I was even asked one time to travel to England to do a show. Now, they would pay for stuff like that,
Really?
but it was with that company's brand and everything, and it would have been a great opportunity. Timing didn't work out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was working at the police department, and I could not put my life on hold and pause just to go.
Go wrestling.
Yeah, because wrestling, when you're doing this independently, you do it on Saturdays. You're working just about every Saturday, every month.
That's tough.
It is, and especially, like I said, the funny story was I would go to church the next day, have a match on Saturday, and I'd go to church on Sunday, and they would say, stand and sing. And I would stand up, and I'd be really sore or tired, and I'd tell my wife, I said, I don't think anybody else in here took 6 chair shots and 3 chops last night, and so I would just kind of slowly rise to my feet to sing.
Yeah. That's tough for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned your math teacher at the intermediate school. He had a big impact on you. Were there other teachers that had big impacts?
Yes, I would love to say there's a lot of people that had impact, but growing up, sometimes you might have one or two. And like I said, I mentioned before, I had a pretty rough upbringing, and so I just didn't have that opportunity. I had some family I'm just being honest, they got in trouble, growing up, and so I had older brothers. I'm the youngest of 5, and so I had to pay for their mistakes. I didn't get my own chance.
Right.
Coming through school, and I'm not giving a woe is me story, but I had to pay for whatever mistakes they did. They would be like, oh,
Your so-and-so's brother.
yeah, your last name's Bolen? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get I was guilty by name.
Yeah.
And Jay McCraw was great. I started playing sports in 8th grade, which really ventured outside of my comfort level at the time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people know me now, and I'm outgoing and I can talk and I pick and stuff, but back then I was incredibly shy. I was embarrassed all the way through school until about the 8th grade. Just the clothes and stuff, I just had a hard time going to school because I was made fun of for the clothes I had to wear. I'd get in fights because there was no good reason other than me that was my, I guess, defense. I just would.
Only thing you knew.
Yeah, I thought, well, they're making fun of me. Maybe if I hit them, they'll leave me alone, And it's not unlike what's going on today. And I'm not condoning bullying and stuff, but you just kind of understood then. Kids are cruel, Kids are going to be cruel to other kids, and we all develop thick skins, and you develop defense mechanisms on how to deal with it, and that was just one of mine. Unfortunately, at the time, I just get in fights and stuff, and so further fueling. Oh, okay, he's trouble. Yeah. So it didn't, but Jay saw something in me. I met him in 7th grade, and he just really talked to me. Listened. More importantly, he just listened to me. I could come and kind of vent to him. I couldn't do that at home. I would go home, and a lot of times, like I said, I was on my own, even as far back as like 4th and 5th grade. So I don't know how much detail you're wanting here.
Oh, it's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Yeah. But I grew up in an alcoholic family, and we were just incredibly poor. I mean, poor people would say, man, they're poor. Just the clothes and stuff. I mean, houses we lived in. I grew up without electricity in a home.
Wow.
Yeah, we had wood stove and a wood cook stove. We had to go out and chop wood and bring it in. Basically, it'd be like a horror movie for kids today. Oh, my kids would have just went crazy if they had to grow up the way I did. We didn't, like I said, no electricity. That means no lights, no TV, nothing. I'd come home and I would have to read books to kerosene lamps.
Yeah.
It was kind of like going back in time, you know. It was like living in the 1800s or something. And I still blame that, but for the reason, like I said, if my eyesight, you know, everybody's eyesight goes on them after a certain year. Mine has to deal with like light or dark, and I can't read certain things unless it's bright. And I just, my own little theory, I blame the kerosene lamps as I was a kid having to read by.
Could be.
And interestingly enough, the first series of books that I really got interested in was Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, okay.
So that really, I think that catapulted my interest into
Law enforcement.
law enforcement, detective work, and everything like that. But yeah, growing up, you'd come home. I mean, we didn't have food. I can remember going like as many as 3 days without food and stuff before, and drinking water. We'd make sugar water. You know, that was like a big treat. But that lasted, like I said, on up through until probably 8th grade. Things got a little better. And I really ventured out, like I said, playing sports. None of my family played sports. We never stayed for extracurricular activities. You know, we always, you know, missing school. I had a little phase where I was in 5th grade. I would miss school. I just did not like school. And mainly reason I didn't like school, I loved going to learn. I always loved to learn. I love that challenge. And I think as adults, you need to learn every day. I think you need to try something or read something or just do something to learn. I mean, I never, ever want to stop learning. It's just great. I think it's just the greatest thing we can do. But I loved school, but unfortunately with the clothes I wore and the abuse and stuff I had to take, and I call it abuse. It was just like you said, hazing, Margo. That's the best way I can put it. It's just kids picking on other kids. And it bothered me, but not to the extent where I was like, you develop to make a tough skin for yourself. But that was the only reason I didn't want to go to school. Plain and simple. I love school. I love the aspect of it. I love the structure. Plus I got food. And that's why I think a lot of us lose sight in today's time. You know, teachers, I try to remind some of them, I say, hey, sometimes the only reason a kid comes to school is because he's going to get something to eat. I know that. So I said, you got to, when they're, you know, lashing out, patience means everything. You know, patience, you got to have that for those kids. And so, because that might be the only reason they're here, just to get something to eat. So I want to provide, you know, that, help them as best you can.
Safe zone.
Yeah, and I didn't have that growing up when I was early on. I'm sad to say, but there were several teachers. What's interesting now is Mr. Huff, who just became the superintendent, his mother, Elizabeth, was my 6th grade English teacher. She was one of those that really had patience and took time with me and really worked. She's one of those that, and actually, I'm ashamed to say this, she's probably one of 2 that I haven't actually went back and told them how much of an impact they made on my life. But she was really good. She made class fun, but that was early on. She was probably one of the ones. Jay McCraw was just awesome. We had a librarian, Dale Webb, at the time. He worked at the middle school up there, the intermediate. He was a preacher when he wasn't a teacher, and he just really he would pick me to do things. Which at that age, you know, you're just looking to be accepted, you know, and it's exciting that somebody thinks I don't have to go beg somebody for something like I was used to. He would pick me, and I was like, hey, you know, I'd walk a little taller. I thought that's great. He sees something that he thinks I stand out from other people. It made me feel good, and he had no other reason than he told me. I talked to him, and I let him know how much of an impact he had. But he told me, he said, I seen something in you. He goes, I knew you were destined to do some good things. And he said, I just thought you needed to. He said, I'm not giving you a hand down, I'm giving you a hand up. That's the first I ever heard that phrase.
Yeah, Rotary uses it as well.
Yeah, and so it was just I admit back then I didn't fully understand it. I would go home and ponder on that. That's one of those things, like I said, you're constantly learning. And if somebody said something I didn't understand, I would try to figure out what it was. I was too embarrassed to say, hey, what's that mean? Because, you're not comfortable at that age. But yeah, he was one. I got here to the high school, Yvonne Goad.
Yeah.
I told you I was a poor math student. Miss Goad broke math down to an elementary level to where I understood it. I mean, to me, she's a miracle worker.
She's amazing.
She is. She is. I pick on Jay because he's had the biggest influence on my life, teaching me life skills. And I know I've kind of went off the rails here, but with him, I was talking about the influence he had on me when I started playing basketball. Every day I think about him. When I come to school, I still wear a shirt and tie because I think you should be professional. Yeah, and I tell the kids, I said it's a professional occupation. Mr. Thompson believes wholly in that. And, he's really, I love the sets of values he instills upon us. He's got some really, really great values and stuff. But he believes that it's a professional job. You should be professional. And I'm not knocking anybody that doesn't, but, I think about Jay every day because he taught me how to tie a tie. So to play basketball back then in those days, you dressed up for game day. And I miss that. I think it
should come back too.
It's traditional and I love it. I love traditional things.
That's what the NBA used to do too, until recently. Now
they show up in sweatpants and, stuff. And I know on off days and stuff, we show up here, like work days and stuff and, laid back clothing. Like I'm wearing this Bill Murray t-shirt now, but I love Bill Murray. But, while you're working, I think you should be professional. And he taught me how to tie a tie because for basketball. And he told me, he goes, I used to run up to his room before school and I'd be so embarrassed. I'd knock on the door and I'd say, I need help with the tie. And I'd close the door because I didn't want nobody, seeing it. He said, finally, he goes, you're going to learn how to do this because I'm not always going to be around. And so he taught me how to tie a tie, taught me so many life lessons I can't get over. Taught me patience, taught me how, like team sports. He's the one that got me to play basketball. And sports and stuff. Football's my favorite sport, and I was better at football than I was any sport. Basketball's actually the least sport that I'm good at, but that's the only one I played. I love football, it's my favorite, but basketball, I had such a passion for it. I don't know how else to say it. And I took it so personal. And I think it also, that was the first sport I played, and I feel like it rescued me from that life that I had. It kind of made me stand out. Because sometimes in athletics, talent will rise to the top. We still had all this stuff where you play team sports or you are in the band where you have a form of like nepotism with relatives or, his parents are so-and-so, If you do something like that and you're talented enough, it'll rise to the top and it's hard to hide it.
Right.
So thankfully I was pretty good at basketball and that helped me rise to the top and made me stand out. And they couldn't hide it. I was just really passionate about it. So I continued that all the way through high school, and I think we were the Coach Pat Sharp's team.
So you played for Sharp, yeah.
Yeah, he was my 9th grade basketball coach, and we went undefeated that year.
Yeah.
But we had such a great team. It wasn't because of one person on the team.
We
had such a balanced team. We got here to the high school, actually, Coach Questenberry was my head coach, and then Coach Sharp was my assistant coach. I think we were the 3rd basketball team to go to state.
Wow.
My senior year, we got to go to the state playoffs. We lost in the first round, but
you still went.
We went, But that I can't express how, like team sports, I was talking about how that was like a family, and you spend all that time with each other, and you're in your highest of highs, your lowest of lows.
As a team.
Yeah, and it's like group therapy too. You're going through breakups with girlfriends. You can talk to some of those guys. Sometimes you got that rivalry. They'll challenge you, and you've got some guy that you're jealous of because he's a little bit on the same level or a little bit better than you, and you're like, okay. Yeah. It pushes you, and that's where I liked it back then. Now, and I'm gonna jump on. I'm gonna say something probably. I don't like the participation trophy generation, as far. I just don't believe in the participation trophy. I know all the kids and stuff, it's great. Give them a certificate, but the kids that really excel and stand out, give them something extra. Let them know, hey, hard work and talent. Yeah. And that gives these kids, if I was to get a certificate and I was looking at that kid holding that shiny trophy, I wouldn't be jealous, or I would be jealous, but I'd be like, I want it. I'm going to work and get that.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody has that mentality, but it gives you a goal in life.
Something to work towards.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But now getting back to Yvonne Goad, I'm sorry.
No.
Miss Goad was great. I got here to high school. She just made such an impact. She was so patient, so kind. Her voice is very calming.
Yes.
I mean, I would go in, I'd be kind of amped up and nervous about class. 5 minutes of listening to her, she had me just like, oh, back in. And I hung on every word she had to say. I've told her she was such a good teacher for me, really, but she doesn't realize
How much?
what a help she was. You know, I can tell her, but I don't think she realizes just, and I would encourage any kid that's ever had anybody that's an impact in life, especially teachers, go back and tell them, let them know. It means the world to me when somebody, what was it? I don't even know. I found this the other day. The other day we come in for our class, and I didn't even know it was there. He had left it in my microwave, and it's just a note just telling me. I asked him what this class, what was her favorite part about class. It's little things like that. It's just a little thank you note telling me that I was one of his favorite parts, and I mean that was a great surprise to find, and especially the way he did it. You know? I opened it up and I was like, what's this? And then but that's like I said with Miss Goad and those other teachers. I've had really those three made the biggest impact on me. And Miss Huff, when I got started, she was really good. Miss Edwards, I had another teacher, Miss Edwards, in the 5th grade. She's a short little lady. She raised on a dairy farm, and when I was 4 and 5, we had a dairy farm when I was at Gladesboro, and that's, like I said, how we got started. So me and her had that in common.
Yeah, definitely. Teachers are very impactful, and you had mentioned that some kids maybe come to school because they might get a meal.
Yeah.
Some kids come to school to escape home, to do the extracurricular, so that they have a life outside of whatever their challenges are at home. So I can definitely see how you benefited from that as well.
I did. I got, it was, it's just like I say, when you go to watch a movie, you go to watch a wrestling match, you're watching a show on TV, you get to escape your life, and you get to become that. Just like reading. We didn't have TV and stuff when I was growing up. I love books. I jumped into books, and like I said, Arthur Conan Doyle, I started reading Sherlock Holmes, and I was just like, I was right there beside of him, me and Watson, helping him solve those crimes. I escaped my reality and went in that book, and it afforded me a chance to, that's where I was talking about imagination, a while ago, in my generation. And I'm one of these, I never knock generations, like, this generation with these kids.
Yeah.
Even during COVID, and a lot of my peers and some of the parents were knocking, saying, these kids are lazy. I was one of those, I saw it for what it was. I felt bad for you students, because y'all were having to change your whole lifestyle. Y'all's structure was being just pulled out underneath you. And I seen the impact it was going to have years later, not just right at that moment, but, these kids that were in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade, the AB days. I mean, that was one of the toughest things to live through as a teacher and try to be understanding, and also as a parent and a grandparent. I had grandkids going through school, and the amount of work that would get put on them in Google Classroom. My grandson, I think he's 2nd grade at that time. I would watch him help my daughter babysit my grandkids, him and his sister, and I could not believe helping them with their homework. Yeah. And I was just like, oh man, this is crazy how much work they would give them. And then everybody's like, oh, these kids wouldn't do their work, they're lazy. And I'm like, if you had put me in that situation and gave me a chance to go, I wouldn't have done it either. And the internet, I mean, just like me growing up the way I did, I wouldn't have had no internet or no opportunity. They couldn't even give me internet like they did the free Wi-Fi hotspots and stuff. I didn't have electricity, so how was I going to get the internet? So I felt so bad for the kids, because here they are, we're asking them to conform to something, and there's no structure. And a lot of the parents were like, we've got to work to make ends meet and stuff like that. And so, I don't know.
It's a challenging time for everyone.
It is. I've lived through some challenging times and some historical stuff going on, different bad things.
9/11, I'm sure.
Yeah, 9/11.
Do you remember where you were?
Exactly where I was. I was in my police car going to my police department to get ready to go to juvenile and domestic relations court. I was driving by the old jailhouse up here in town. In between there and there used to be an old garage there. And I was listening to the John Boy and Billy show on 96.3. And I was driving by there when they gave the report the first tower had been hit. And that really got me on edge. I was like, there's no way a plane just, you still. So I drove to the police department, and my chief had a TV in his room. Kenny Sharp was my chief at the time. And I went in his office and I said, hey, they just reported a plane hit one of the Twin Towers. And so we turned it on, we was watching, and that was like millions of others. I saw the second plane crash into the second tower, and he was like, holy crap, we're under attack. And it just, I don't know how people felt at Pearl Harbor when that was going on at the time. I was just, I remember feeling, 2 times I felt really helpless and horrible. 9/11 attacks and Virginia Tech tragedy. I felt so helpless because I'm here, but I can't do nothing. We asked if they needed help to go down to Virginia Tech when that happened. They said no. You can imagine what was going on, the chaos there. But they had every law enforcement agency from the surrounding areas coming, and you get so many, it just turns into a mess. Everybody's in everybody's way. But I just felt so helpless. 9/11, I felt so helpless with that. It's not a good feeling. I don't like it to feel helpless because I always think I can help somebody do something. But you realize then how big the world is and how small you are. It's really crazy.
Definitely. So as you were graduating high school, did you kind of have an idea of what you wanted to do? We know you've done a lot in your life, so did you have a set plan, or were you just kind of figuring it out?
Oh, Lord, no, I didn't have a set plan. I was lost. I was scared to death. I did not want to graduate. I loved school. Like I said, we were still poor, but I could work at that point, and I had to, and that's, like I said, playing football was one of the options I didn't get to because they required you to come to summer workouts and stuff like that, and I had to work a job to get money to buy my school clothes, and I had to save up and buy my car, that I could drive my senior year. I didn't have a plan. I was just surviving. I was on autopilot. I guess a lot of me was terrified of what that next chapter of my life led to, so I felt like if I avoided it as long as I could,
I have to deal with it.
Yeah, I don't have to deal with it. I'm one of those who, I was going to Withville to sign up for my classes a week before they started. I knew I wanted to go further in my education because education is something that I don't care what you are, nobody can take that from you. You could be a criminal, you could be the world's worst guy in the world, but if you've got an education, nobody can take that from you. They can take your freedom, they can take all this stuff, but they can't take your education. I'm one of those, without education, without school, and people don't realize what an awesome opportunity it is to come to school here in America. Other countries don't have this, option. Some of them don't, but I love it. But I didn't have a plan. I knew I wanted to get into law enforcement. I'd already decided, okay, well, I guess law enforcement's the best course of action I can do because you don't have to have math. I said, some of it you can get in. And I'm being honest, I was like, that was what went through my mind.
Okay.
I thought, what can I do that's going to require, and I was shortchanging myself, but we do that at 17, 18 years old. And I'm one of those who've always, it's hard for people to look in the mirror and be honest with themselves. I knew I was graduating, I was getting into adulthood, I needed to look in the mirror and be honest with what my life, I didn't have the financial means to go to any college I wanted to. I knew Withville, I was going to go there because they had grants and, scholarships, opportunity there where I couldn't pass up. I needed to go. And Withville was a great college. I loved it. But I didn't have a plan. I thought, well, I'll go and get my general education and maybe somebody will advise me over there. Maybe I can talk to somebody. And I just remember being terrified and
Figuring it out.
Yeah, trying to figure it out. And I really didn't have no support system. I envy some of these people who do. I didn't have a support system. I couldn't go home. I mean, like I said, I'd go home and somebody might be there or not. This was still out. Even my parents, and I had loving parents. I'm not trying to, just really shoot them down. I had loving parents, good parents. It was just, my dad had quit school in 7th grade. My mom had quit in 8th grade. And they just were not.
It's hard.
Yeah, they just were not geared that way to, like, come home. I need help with homework. Didn't have a clue, and it was just trying to plan for something like that, like going and sign up for classes. I did all that myself. I just basically went over there and I had to trust what everybody was saying, which is bad in a way, because sometimes when you go to a place, whether it's a college admissions office or somewhere, they're just trying to get you through as fast as they can to deal with the next person. And it's sad that that's the way the world is, but that's a harsh reality. And I just kind of got pushed through and took whatever classes they said, and it was. And I know it's my own fault. I should have been better informed, and I could have asked better questions. But at that point in time, I was just too
Trying to survive.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable enough. I was just too scared. But like I said, it was my own fault too. I'm not blaming others. I should have did better. I just didn't put forth the effort. I was, like I said, trying to hang on to something that was going away.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. So you graduate with a general studies degree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then from there, did you enter law enforcement?
Yes, I entered law enforcement. I got a job working, and I've done everything, as I was talking with you the other
you've done
day.
it all.
Back then, growing up in high school and stuff, I worked like most kids do. I worked in fast food.
Yeah. Food line?
Well, it was Lowe's Foods that I worked
really?
at. Yeah,
Okay.
Food Line was here, but there was another grocery store up there where it used to be called Super Dollar, but when I was growing up, it was Lowe's Foods.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I worked there as a bag boy and a third shift stalker. I worked before that, I worked in the hay fields and the cabbage fields. I never thought I would ever miss a hay field until I got a job in cabbage, and that was way worse. It was tough, but
the summer's bad.
yeah, but it taught me, like I said, like I always joke. Somebody says, "Well, why'd you become a cop?" I said, "Man, I know there's harder work out there. I wanted an easier job." So you want an easier job where you got to fight and people shoot at you and all that? And I said, "Yeah, that's the stuff I'm used to. I don't like this work stuff." But yeah, I did that. I was trying to think, the cabbage fields, restaurants. After that, when I graduated high school, I got into construction and vinyl siding. And I was actually going to college full time, working in construction and vinyl siding full time. And I was substitute teaching.
Wow.
I was doing all that. I never got sleep, but I'm one of those, anybody knows me knows that even now, all my life, if I get 3 hours of sleep, that's a good night's sleep for me. I'm one of those, 4 hours is great night's sleep, but I can't even tell you the last time I slept 5 hours or more. It's strange. Every job I've ever had has been mostly third shift.
Right.
As a kid, and as a kid getting out here running around the neighborhoods and stuff, I never had a curfew or anything. We just run around till 3, 4 in the morning.
Get up, do it again the next day.
Yeah, go sleep, and then I'd sleep a few hours, jump up, and we'd go swimming. I was very active as a kid. My generation was really active outside. We played ball. We all met up and played ball. The closest I can tell you is watch the movies The Goonies or Stand By Me or The Sandlot. That was my generation. That's the reason I connect with those movies so good. You knew where your friends were because all the bikes piled in the yard. Yeah. I didn't have to have a cell phone to call and say, "Hey, where you at?" I'd just ride my bike around the neighborhood and I'd see 6 or 7 bikes piled in one yard, and I said, "Everybody's here." So,
It doesn't happen anymore.
No. What got me started in law enforcement path, though, is I got a job working at Twin County Hospital as a security guard. I was the old rent-a-cop. I used to put up with, you always get these stereotypes go on, even as a police officer. But I worked there, and that was a really good experience for me. Emergency room, there is a lot that goes on at a hospital that people don't realize. That emergency room is just crazy, where you've got car accidents, you've got fights that happen outside, and people come and get stitched up. Well, here comes the other guy they was in a fight with, and the fight starts up again in the emergency room. At that time, we had a psych unit on the 4th floor. You had to deal with that. That gave me a really good basis. That made me a better police officer once I got into law enforcement, because I'd already done some of those things,
To
dealt with some of those
recognize
people, situations. It made me a little comfortable when I finally, did go to the police academy, and I understood stuff better. People shortchange life experience. Life experience is really, really essential. And if you top that off with a good education, man, it's unbeatable. Unbeatable.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed a lot of my really good teachers did something before they taught. They were in a different career, they're career switchers, and they bring that different perspective and life experience to the classroom.
Yeah.
It's really beneficial.
It helps, and it's like with this class, if I'd never worked as a police officer, and like I said, this is going on I'll start 29 years in January. If I didn't if I just come in here and I never did the job, it's hard for me to talk about the job,
Teach it, yeah.
And we don't just explore that one job, but it's hard for me to, I always tell them, you got to have probable cause to stop or, investigate further, or what we call reasonable articular suspicion. And they asked me, I said, well, you know what it is to articulate? And articulation is just like I was telling about wrestling. You got to tell a story, paint a picture.
Yeah.
I need to take that audience and put them in that moment that I'm going through out here on the street. That dangerous situation, I need to paint this picture and articulate to them and explain so the judge, the jury, and everybody,
Understand.
they feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
They hear what I'm hearing. They know the emotions that must have been going through me. A good police officer has to have that. So if you can articulate that and show them and let them feel that, that means a lot. That puts them there.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So you started at the hospital. You go to police academy. Is that in Pulaski, Dublin?
Yeah, it was actually in New River, Virginia, which is right in between Fairlawn and Dublin.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just it's like Doug Spur, to us.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's just like a
community.
little community. It was at an old elementary school, and I started there. It was a 13-week program. Wow, 13 weeks to be a police officer. You got the awesome responsibility. I can take away somebody's freedom off of just 13 weeks of training. That's what I always I was like, we need to be trained more. And that doesn't just go for police officers, but really police officers need to be trained more. After I got in that line of work, I realized how much more training. You can get by and you can do your job and do that stuff, but it's like saying, all right, Ethan, I'm going to get on an airplane. We're going to get on an airplane.
Well, going to fly it.
and get in there and fly, but you're getting on this because the lowest bidder got the contract. Is that comforting? Or you don't want that in law enforcement. You want somebody who's there is going to protect you and be there to protect your life, your kids, and all that stuff. You want them to be really informed and know the most that they can. But yeah, I went there and I had a class there was 30 people in my basic class, which was unheard of at the time.
Pretty large.
Yeah, generally there was about 12 or 13, but we had 3 from Hillsville that went, had 2 from Carroll County that was up here. Montgomery County, Carroll County is actually bigger than Montgomery County. A lot of people don't know that in square footage.
Yeah, but the population.
But the population, man.
I guess Tech alone is bigger than Carroll.
Tech is its own little town, So they had 11 officers in that academy, going through. And we were like, wow. It was a good experience, and a police academy is like other things. It prepares you. It takes away some of the mystery. It helps you with the basis.
Bigger picture.
But then when you get in the job, it's just like anything else. It's on-job training. You learn so much doing the job, and fortunately, it eases you along. Sometimes it doesn't. You get thrown right into situations and scenarios, baptism by fire, so to speak, and so you learn so much on the job. And it was, the police academy was great. It was a good experience. Again, I was terrified. I was stepping outside my comfort zone, but I was like, okay, this is what I've said I've wanted.
Yeah.
And so that really prepared me and helped me to make tougher decisions throughout life.
So did you go in via Hillsville or Carroll?
Yeah, I got hired, and back then, you either got hired straight off the street, which meant you had no prior law enforcement experience, or you had worked a job similar, or you had military.
Yeah.
now they've got like pre-employment programs where you can put yourself through the academy.
I know some deputies start as dispatchers and then they go on the road.
Yeah, now with the sheriff's office, that was like a rite of passage. You would start off as a dispatcher, go to a jailer, because we had the old jail still open when I was working. And then from the jailer, you would go to the road, because all those things prepared you for
the road.
Yeah. But with Hillsville, I got hired, I bugged my chief at the time, that Kenny Sharp. Oh, I bothered him. You had to go and just harass him.
Yeah.
And I tried for 2 years to get hired on there. And then finally, my son was born in October of '96. And I went home to get some stuff for my wife to take back to the hospital, because she was in labor. And I pressed the message on my answering machine. I'm dating myself. I pressed the button on the answering machine, and it was him, and he was saying, "Can you come in for an interview tomorrow?" Yeah. Well, here I am. I've just got a son that's getting ready to be born, and I've got the biggest job opportunity at that time in my life. I was like, it was excitement, fear, nervous. I didn't know what to feel, driving back. We lived in Austensville at that time, and driving back from Austensville up to Galax, my mind, I couldn't even tell you the trip.
Racing.
Yeah. Wow. So, but yeah, it was just a wild opportunity that I was being presented with then.
Yeah. How long did you stay with Hillsville?
Let's see, I stayed with them for 12 years. Okay. And then I wanted to go back to school because I had my associates. I wanted to go back to school and get my bachelor's, because you could actually work as a police officer without any college at all. But if you had an associate's degree, it helped. So I thought, well, I'll do that. And then
if I paid more too.
Yeah. Well, at the time it started off, and you're going to laugh when I tell you what I started off as a police officer. The pay when I worked as a security guard at the hospital, I was making like $18,400 and something a year. Yeah. As a security guard at the hospital. Now this was in '96.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. When I started off, I got hired as a police officer with the town of Hillsville. I was making $13,000 a year. Wow. Now think about $13,000 a year, and that was right at the beginning in the '96, '97. And I had 3 kids.
It doesn't go very far.
Oh man, you learn to adapt and stretch, and like I said, growing up poor, that really helped me to put in perspective. Okay, this is what I need to do, and you want your kids to have way better than you ever had. Yeah. So taking care of those needs and stuff like that. But that's the thing about law enforcement and teaching and other professions. Those are the two I have the most experience with that I feel are underpaid. And it's not that we do so much great work. It's just that it's really taxing, and
it's hard to survive.
It really is. And I'm one of those. I despise money and what it can potentially do to a person. And I know everybody's got to pay a bill, but I'm not money driven. I would rather have sense of community than everybody kind of take care of everybody. And
definitely.
Yeah, but I don't know. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to survive. But you definitely don't get in law enforcement or teaching wanting that paycheck.
Yeah, because you love it.
And it's a great profession, and it does pay well. It's just not. I feel it could do better, and I'm not bucking for a raise, but I'm content, right now. But back then, when you got kids and stuff, and I thought police work would pay more. I was so surprised, because here I am. I'm taking a pay cut to go from with 3 kids, and me and my wife, I'd sit down and talk to her, and I said, look, this is one of those conversations. This is what I've always wanted. We're really going to have to stretch our budget. We're going to have to tighten up a little bit, but. Yeah, you make it work. You can adapt. Humans are remarkable creatures. We can adapt to stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you go to ODU for your 4-year?
Yes, I went to Old Dominion.
Was that when they had the satellite campus in Woodsville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they had the satellite campus there, and it was great. I had a great experience dealing with them. I only had to go to the campus a few times, ODU's campus. Yeah. And it was great. It was just for people who have already worked, you got families, and you're already in a career, and you just want to accent your resume and get that education. That was a great thing. I can't speak enough about Woodsville Community College and their campus and their programs and everything they got going on. I mean, it's just the money saving that you can do. And I know some people's got this stereotype about community colleges and stuff like that. It's just stereotypes, you know. Education is education, and I got just as good, if not better, at Whitfield than I did at ODU. And all the professors, you got that being able to talk to your professor and let them look in your eyes and see, hey, I had to work this homicide last night, and I was up until 6 o'clock in the morning. I know I got a discussion board question and stuff going on, but could I please have a day just to, you know, they can see the angst and the pain and the sleep in, you know, no sleep in your eyes. So that means a lot.
And what was that degree in? Was it criminal justice?
Police administration. Yeah. I went on, like I said, when I was in any job I've ever been in, I've tried to be proactive and give back.
Yeah.
And to me, part of that giving back is never be satisfied, always, you know, better yourself. Yeah. So when I got hired at the police department, like I said, I stayed there for 12 years. I left to go back to get my degree. And so that was when I went to teaching full time and went to police work part time. I got hired on with the sheriff's office to do part time. My police chief at the time at Hillsville had told me initially he would work with me in my schedule when it come to college to go back to get my degree. Yeah. But then when it come time as a reality to do it, it was long on promise and short on delivery. So again, I had to make a tough choice. What do I do? And again, I'm going back to my wife because we discuss everything together. And she's smarter than me. It's a well-known fact that women are smarter than men and stronger. But I discussed it with her, and I said, again, I'm going to be taking a pay cut to go back to teaching here. Yeah, and at the time, I was going to be working as a teacher's aide until I got my degree. And so I did that. I took a big pay cut.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And concentrated on education, did that. I worked at the sheriff's office part-time, extra money. And I did that for, until 2012 and a few years. And then I think I started at the school in 2007. I worked at the middle school. And then they called me from the police department. The chief of police was retiring, or he was going away, and they wanted a lot of the citizens, which I really felt comfortable with and was tickled with, that I lived here in town all my life since I moved from Gladesboro, had come and wanted me to come back as chief of police, asked for me to come back as chief of police, which that was just an honor. Yeah, it was an honor for me to have people come and ask. And so the council members asked me to come back, and reluctantly, I agreed because I really loved teaching. Once I got into it, I really, really, really loved teaching. I'd had my degree then, you know, and I didn't try to go back in law enforcement full time. Even though I thought, ironically, okay, I'm going back for police administration, and here I am now. I'm loving education. And they want me to be the chief of police now. So I went back and I did that for 2 years. And the only reason I left that was because political environment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you know, a sheriff's office, you have elections, so you think that's political. With a town, I worked for 5 members of a town council.
And the mayor.
Yeah, and all have different agendas, all have different viewpoints. I was being pulled in every direction. At that time, the police chief was over his department. I didn't have nobody over me except the town council as a whole. You know, it took a majority if they wanted to get rid of me or anything else. And toward the end of my run, it was really getting tiring because I was on salary.
Yeah.
I was working 18, sometimes 20-hour days. Yeah. Not getting paid extra. Dealing with, because when you deal with, when we become grown men in a job, we become kids again. Grown men become children again. So you're just working with children. It's kind of like teachers here. I don't think Mr. Thompson ever realized he'd have this many kids. But yeah, it just was. I firmly believe, like I said, I'm not money driven. If you're not happy, you need to get out of it. Yeah. And I was miserable. I would back out of my driveway, and I just could not muster the strength to go into work that day. And so I would take a sick day and just stay at home and self-loathe, and feel sorry for myself. But, I eventually decided, okay, I got to do something. And so I knew I was coming up to the 2-year mark, and I had a month's vacation, and the new budget and all that stuff came out in July and everything. So in June, I put in my 2 weeks notice plus my month's vacation. And so I ended it like that, and I come back over here because I was teaching this class and working at the middle school too.
Yeah, okay.
But back then, this class was only one block. And so I was doing both. And so when I left that and went back as chief of police, of course, they got, somebody else to teach the class. But thankfully, they'd went through like three instructors, and nobody could stand it.
Really?
I don't know why. I loved it.
Yeah.
So I called Mr. Thompson up when I was thinking about leaving before I put in my 2 week notice, and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm planning to do. You're the first person I'm telling."
Yeah.
Because I've always been, he's been really, really good. As far as a teacher or administrator, he's had a big impact on my life too.
Definitely.
I mean, he's overcame so much, and he's the strongest individual I've ever met, honestly. So I could always talk to him. So I told him, I said, "Hey, this is what's going on." He goes, "Well, I think this is coming back up if you want to reapply for it." And he goes, "We just can't keep instructors, some for whatever reason." And he said, "But, can't promise you anything, but, put in your application and see, it's coming back open." I said, "All right." So luckily I got hired on here. I think I had some competition, but I don't think none of them had ever taught the class before. Or
You were former chief of police.
Yes.
Law enforcement experience. You were a no-brainer candidate.
plus I was a certified police officer too. That
Right.
means a lot, because, the others that applied weren't police officers, they had not done the job. So I think that gave me, again, going back
Definitely.
to the experience.
Life experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started doing that and come back, and I've been here ever since. And so it's funny, like I said, I've either gone full-time law enforcement, part-time teacher, or part-time law enforcement, full-time teacher. It's went back and forth. And I worked at Floyd County Sheriff's Office for 3 years. The sheriff down there was a good friend of mine, and he had asked me in between that time. I was working here as well, and I was part-time. I was actually auxiliary with the sheriff's office at that time, Carroll County. And the sheriff asked me, he said, "I have got these young guys. Everybody in my department's new." He had a lot of people retire, and so there was some turnover. And his officers, I think he said he had 5. One of them had 1 year's experience.
Wow.
And he was the veteran. So he asked me if I could come down there and work with some of the younger officers. He said, "I'm not looking for you to be in court. I'm not looking for you to do this." He said, "Just come out and work and show these guys the ropes," which I was like, okay.
Yeah.
To me, I thought that sounds nice and laid back and good honor. And he thought that much of me. And so that's what I did for years. And with that, and then the opportunity come open down there, like I said, I believe in learning and get your feet wet on anything. The sheriff's office took over the animal control department, which is what's happening in the state. A lot of the sheriff's offices are absorbing the animal control position. And so he come, and I worked in Floyd County, but I lived in Carroll. And he made that, because usually a lot of sheriff's offices, you have to live in the county that you work.
Right, yeah.
A lot of them are getting by or doing away with that now, but back then it was traditional.
Yeah, there's a Pulaski deputy who lives up on Cavalier.
Yeah.
So
So they're getting away from that. Grayson County started that, and then with County, you could live anywhere. But so he broke tradition just to say, okay, well, even though I'm 10 minutes from the line, it's still. But then, so he talked about the animal control position coming open, and I'd worked down there enough and got all those young officers through, and I was just kind of going through the motions. He'd actually tried to get me to get on in an administrative capacity, and I did not want to be. I just wanted to
stay
be.
away from it.
Yes, I said I don't want this. After that, political nightmare at Hillsville, it was just. I just didn't. One of the things, and I want to go back and touch on that just to explain. One of the issues that I was facing then that I didn't agree with them, they wanted radar run on the interstate. They wanted the town officer out there running radar on that one little mile.
The annex part.
And it wasn't feasible to me, in my opinion. Yeah. I took the town manager out there. I showed him how it worked. I showed him legalities of you can't. I might be picking up somebody doing 80 right here, but that's out of town limits.
Yeah.
They're not in town limits until they pass this threshold. So I said, you've got a legality, technicality right there. Try to explain it all away, but that was one of their issues. They really wanted us out there. We had the troopers and the deputies out there running radar. Town, we needed to protect the people because, in my opinion, Hillsville should be run like Mayberry. It should, and it you know, we did foot patrols, things like that, walking up and down through the storefronts, you know, the malls, all that stuff. But that was one of the big issues. That, and plus, as I said, the police department was over its own department. They were going to do away from that and put the police department under the town manager's umbrella of work. And it's not that, I didn't agree with that because the town manager we had at the time, and it had nothing to do with age or gender. It had to do everything with experience. She was a 22-year-old fresh college graduate who knew nothing about police work, and all of a sudden she's going to be thrusted to make these decisions about police officers who got hired, who got promoted, who got fired, and a budget for a police department. And she knew nothing about any of that. And I just showed my concern, which it wasn't from, like I said, it wasn't from a place of malice. It was just from a place of, this is what's going to happen. And they were still thinking about doing that. And I was like, I wasn't ready to give up that control that I had with doing things that I knew should have been done. I didn't want to be in that position to know that this decision needed to be made, and then all of a sudden I didn't have that's not what I'd signed up for. That's not what they told me when I was hired. So that was one of the reasons I made my choice. I thought, with this politics and then this, and they did eventually do that. They put the police department under the town manager's position.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, it seems like with many administrative roles, and this is not particular to education or in law enforcement, but you spend a lot of the time just putting out fires, like Mr. Huff had said at a system-wide opening the other day, rather than actually helping people why you got into the job in the first place.
Yes.
That can be hard. And for some people, they're made to do that. That's what they're good at. But some people just want to, like you want to do the job, help people be at the front lines.
Yeah, and you know what needs to be done.
Right.
I've lived here in town all my life. I knew everybody in town. I knew which this person needed, what I knew like I said, going back to talking to them, whether they're 8 or 80, I knew what the elderly community expected out of us. I knew what our kids needed from us, whether they believed it or not. I knew what they needed. You know, we didn't need to force anything on them. We just needed to provide them with choices. That's why I love democracy. I think we should have 20 people running for public office all the time. Give the people a choice. You know, I think that would keep people honest too. But yeah, you spend so many times, like when I took over the job, I had the other person's baggage. I had to deal with their stuff, clean up essentially their mess before I could get started. Now that in a government job, that takes you.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm talking about grants. I had paperwork for grants, different kinds of paperwork that went on for our programs, our training schedules, our training calendars. Everything was off. They had just kind of fallen off the wayside because you've got what's called, everybody's got a manual that they do, policy and procedure manual. All right, this might be policy, but then you've got what's called practice. You know, it's policy, but this is how we do it. This is actually how it's done, and that's the practice. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of government stuff gets into, especially police department, sheriff's offices, and stuff like that. Carroll is run really good. That's one thing I can say about Sheriff Kemp. He has really went in and streamlined that. He's put the right people in the right positions. He's aligned himself with people, and he's really got that thing running. Excellent. So I mean, it's just really, really good. But back then, man, I had that to deal with, and then I'm one of these people, I despise having meetings just to say we met. You know, so we can tell someone, well, we met on Tuesday. What did you accomplish? Well,
could have been email.
Yeah, it could have been an email, real good. You know, and so that's kind of what the point, you know, we got to with that. But once I got back here, you know, I decided, you know, I knew I missed it when I was chief of police. I would come over here and try to visit the program because one of my friends had actually come in here and tried to teach it. I don't know if you remember, but you know Seth Bolen, don't you? Seth's dad, Brant, was my buddy, and he come and taught it, but Brant was like, nope, I'm not enjoying it. So I was like, okay. And then I realized I missed it. I come in here and I was looking around and I was like, oh, that old, I'm very, very.
Is it this room?
Yeah, it was in this room. Me and Renee Thomas actually shared this room. She was a
Yeah.
Spanish teacher.
Yeah.
And so we shared this room. I was traveling then, going to different classrooms, but I come in this room. This is where he was at that day. I come to visit him, and I was just like, oh, I'm very nostalgic.
Yeah.
I live in the past, so way, way too much. I don't know. I'm just really, really sentimental. That's the one thing people don't realize about me. I'm so sentimental about things, and so I come here, and it's just like my heart was tugging.
Yeah.
At this, and so I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and since I've come back, I have no desire to go anywhere else. I love the job. I love the sense of education. I love the idea of I know I've got kids in here that's not going to go on to college or go on and get jobs in law enforcement, but they need a safe environment to come and feel comfortable in. And I've never been cliquish. I don't, different kids from different. I love anybody.
everyone.
Yeah, be an individual. I remember golf kids coming in here. They were uncomfortable. Then once they get going, I tell them I respect anything, any individuality.
Yeah.
And I said, look at me. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I've got Captain America's shield hanging on my wall, the bat signal. Comic books, like I said, going back to my childhood, and superheroes that allowed me to escape, and I can do some good. Being a police officer, I can do some good. Being a teacher, I can do some good. If here I can deal with them now before they make a poor decision, and I have to deal with them later, on the police side of things. If I can stop just one, that's worth it. If I can just stop one from going down that path, choosing it and getting in trouble, it's worth it. It's way worth it. One soul is worth saving,
Definitely. Yeah, you're a really positive role model for so many kids, not only on the teaching side. A lot of kids have issues with authority. You're a safe teacher that they can come to discuss, but also on the law enforcement side, a lot of people, this isn't exclusive to kids, are scared of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And you're a friendly face, someone they can get to know, just like Officer Mabry is down the hallway.
Oh, yeah.
It says, hey, these are real people too. They put on their pants one leg at a time.
Yes,
They're
sir.
just like you and me. So thank you for doing that.
Oh,
being
well,
that.
you're welcome. No, it's my honor. And it's like I said, I was trying to figure out too how I could serve, because I have the utmost respect for soldiers.
Yeah.
And I knew I could not serve. To me back then, I didn't have the mentality for it. I'd have gotten in trouble because I had a chip on both shoulders back then. I was immature and had, kind of a poor attitude because, your upbringing. And at that time, I was coming out of my safety zone, and I didn't know what to do. And so you put up all these different defense mechanisms. And one of mine to deal with it was I was like, I'm just not going to listen. I had the same problem with authority growing up. And it wasn't that I didn't have a respect for it. It's just that I didn't want to recognize it, So, doing this and getting there, it helped me. And like I said, I can provide so much empathy when it comes. I've felt, I hate that saying when you get a speaker that comes in and says, I've sat where you've sat.
Yeah.
And I've always despised that. No, I don't know what they're feeling. I don't know I maybe have been through a similar situation, but I don't know exactly what they're going through. I don't know exactly. That's why I always hated when somebody would come in and say that. I've sat where you sat. No, you don't know.
Yeah.
But a little side note about Deputy Mabry is he actually, now this, I'm going to tell my age, but he went to school with my oldest daughter. I used to pick little Deputy Mabry up when he was in second grade and wrestle with him and fly him around. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling my age there, but yeah, I used to get Chris and pick him up and wrestle with him when he was in school with my daughter.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I didn't realize it was him. He was working the courtroom one day, and I was up there talking to him, and I thought, man, Chris is awesome. He is so good for this school. He is so good for this community. He's one of the best deputies we've got, bar none. I would put my endorsement on him. He's proven to me. It's not that he talks it, he walks it, and he's proven that he cares about kids, about the community, about the job. He's one of our most dedicated, and he's so good for this this school. When they were going to move him over here, I was just like, nothing against any of the other ones, but I was just like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a approachable situation. He's so approachable and he's so relatable. I thought this is going to be so good.
Yeah, definitely. You and him are both great role models for law enforcement in the building.
I appreciate that. It's just my thing in teaching too is you got to build relationships first.
Yeah.
I can't start teaching if you don't like me. You're not going to care what I have to say. And I've had some rocky starts to kids not knowing about me, because you'll look at me if I'm standing out in the hallway and walk by, and I try to pick on the kids as they're going through or say something to them.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will look at me for what I am, and they're like, you know, just how it's not that people judge other people. It's just that we've got this
preconceived notions.
Yeah, stereotypical stuff. And I tell them, I said, it's okay. It's human to look at somebody and make an assumption. I said, that's okay. I said, that doesn't make you a bad person. I said, when you start judging them, then that you know, that's where it comes into play. But, you know, so many don't know how I'm going to be. They just see this big old guy and thinks he's a cop and he's a jerk. That's why my picture outside has me sitting there with a donut and a cup of coffee. You know, I want kids to realize, hey,
picture with your dog too.
Yeah, you got to make fun of yourself. You got to sit here and you can't take life too serious, because you're not going to get out of it alive. Yeah. So do the best you can in between there. It's just you know, it's just a struggle. And these years of y'all's life, I remember what a struggle it was for me. Mm-hmm. You're searching for an identity. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, who you want to become. Yeah. And it's so hard and it's so exhausting. Refrigerator. Yeah. But yeah, it's a struggle. And like I said, if you're lucky enough to find a few people along the way that are willing to give of their time and their help and their expertise and wisdom, man, you've done something. You better listen.
Definitely. I do have a couple questions that I like to ask every interviewee.
Okay.
The first one is, what advice do you have to kids my age who are just coming out into the world, who are thinking about pursuing a career in education or in law enforcement?
The advice I would give is to listen as much as you could to everything, you know. Pay attention to people that came before you. Give that respect, and you're not going to agree with everything that's going on, but the biggest thing is just think for yourself. Yeah. Don't let, my fear is, and I've witnessed this firsthand, you've got different college professors, different people who work in jobs, because when I started, you had the old salty veterans. Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you about this law enforcement. You don't forget everything you learned at that academy. You just listen to me. You've got that.
Back in my day.
Yeah, back in my day, boy, we do it. And what's so funny is I have caught myself saying, back in the day, we at one point in time, and get ready, you're going to become your parents.
Yeah,
you're going to become your parents, and it's not going to taste good when you say those words that your parents say. You're going to go, ooh, oh, that don't taste good. But it lessens in time. But just think for yourself. You know, I tell these kids when they come in here every year, I said, I'm not an expert. I've worked 30 years in law enforcement. I've worked this many years in education. I taught at the police academy before I ever taught here. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm not an expert at anything. I've just got a vast life experience. Mm-hmm. I've done every kind of job. I've dealt with different situations. And that's the thing about law enforcement attracted me. Just when you think you've saw it all, something new pops up and you're like, how? But the big thing is to think for yourself, just to learn. Don't pay attention and listen, soak up everything you can from other people and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you conform that to whatever your values, your upbringing, and your knowledge and your wisdom, and let that be your guide. You know, think for yourself, because there's no other greater thing. Because we all just did what everybody thought, and that's position this climate is in right now. If it's okay to disagree with somebody and still be friends, and still go on and have a discussion. You don't, just because they don't think the same way you do doesn't make them wrong or a bad person. Yeah. It's just different, and different is great. Yeah. I mean, different is great. If you had to sit here and teach the same kids over and over and over, eventually get stale. Yeah, it's going to get stale. If you had to pull over the same person over and over and over and over, you're going, well, hey. That's why different is great. Different kids, different perspectives, and I learn more from them than they probably do from me. Mm-hmm. I get more from them. I always tell them every year that it's like hocus pocus. I suck the life force out of them so I can stay young, you know, and they're laughing at me. I said, that's the only way. Y'all keep me young. Y'all keep me relevant, because each class that comes in, whatever the fad is or whatever, it keeps me relevant. I'm in the know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't express that enough. Just learn to just think for yourself, and you know, form your own opinions, and take everything, research. Oh my gosh, just learn, think for yourself. If you research everything first, not just realize that, you know, Megan Thee Stallion's got an opinion, it's not exactly right. You know, too many people base stuff off of sports people, movie stars, and again, like you said, a lot of them don't have the life experience on stuff. But
That's true.
just the research is out there. It's easier now than ever. I wish the internet and all that stuff was around when I was coming up, because I used to have to go to the library, break open the old Dewey Decimal System, and get that index card and go search for the book. But man, to me, it was like, I always told my friends, and they laughed at me, because like I said, when I was in high school, I played sports. Everybody was like, you know, you got cliquish. I wasn't necessarily the jock. We were friends. My group of graduates, we were friends with everybody. We had the jocks, we had the nerds, we had the NASCAR people, we had goths, but they were called anarchists when I was in school. They wore the big A's, you know, anti-government and stuff. But it was just, you know, nobody knows what they are. They're searching for an identity. But we all got along good, you know. And you know, it's just that thinking that you have to be in a certain group or anything. Yeah, and it took me a while. I mean, it took me a while to learn. You've got to not follow that popular fad or what this movie star thinks and all that. It's all right to like them for their art, but you know, and that's where I get kind of crazy, where I wish so many movie stars wouldn't give their political opinion or their, you know, personal opinion.
People tend to
They're right.
treat it as gospel.
Yeah, it's just it's okay, but that influence that they have, you know, use that for something. Push education, push life skills, push trade, you know, trade schools and stuff like that. Learn a trade so you can be, you know, productive. But you know, the political views and all this stuff, I just think, like I said, too many people don't stop and think for themselves. And one of the biggest advice things I used to give myself, because as a police officer, I told you a while ago, we had the power to take away somebody's freedom. That's an awesome responsibility. People don't look at it that way. These rookie officers don't look at it that way. You have the power to take away somebody's freedom, and that's an awesome responsibility that I don't take lightly. So on the inside of my police car, I work part-time now, so I don't have my own vehicle. I go up there and get like one of the regular vehicles, but I'll keep a sticker with me if I'm working that night or if I'm working 3 days. But I've got a sticker that I make myself and just tape it up, and it says, stop, think. Because before you get out of that car, you need to stop and think about what you're doing, or on the way, like a police officer on the way to a call. If I get a call, in my mind, I'm processing before I get there what the house looks like, what the yard looks like. If you know your territory, where are the danger areas, which corner, which one could possibly come around this way, depending on the call, depending on the, you know, what's happening. I've got everything in my mind. I'm processing it. And before I get out that door, I look, that's the last thing I see. It says stop and think. So I want to stop and think before I get out there. And so I don't make a poor decision. I don't let emotions in. You know, emotions can play a bad part in your decision-making process, you know, because we get out, and I've had to deal with children being beat up and abused. I've had to deal with wives, you know, being murdered and get out of the car, and that husband's coming at you yelling and screaming and stuff like that. So you've really got to kind of tie down that emotion and keep it. And that's a hard thing to do, especially when a child. Yeah. It's really hard, but you know, keep learning and think for yourself. That's the two pieces of advice I would give.
It's applicable to every career.
Yeah, it really is. Life in general, get you through life.
We've talked a lot about books and research and learning. What's your favorite book?
You know, I would like to say something that's really astounding and all that, but like I said, growing up as a kid, I just had some really bad experiences and some tough things going on. And I go back to the Arthur Conan Doyle's Complete Works of Sherlock Holmes, because that book just kind of rescued me in really dark moments, and that's what I go back to. I wish I could say, and just being honest, I wish I could say, hey, the Bible, but I didn't know nothing about religion back in that time, because church was not pushed upon me. I just really didn't know much, but that book, going to it was like my
safe space.
Yeah, it was my security blanket. It was my I could crawl inside that book and hide.
Yeah.
And I was safe, and I wasn't hungry. I wasn't cold. I wasn't sleepy. I wasn't, that kid in the tattered clothes. I was in there solving mysteries and living in London.
And my last question, it's a little bit of a cliche.
Okay.
What is the meaning of life to you?
The meaning of life?
Yeah.
At this point, faith and family.
Yeah.
I'm really, it took me to get into that, but I believe everybody has got their own faith. I don't believe church is somewhere where you get religion. I believe a person can, and this is my opinion, so, I believe a person can still have faith and still be religious and never go to a building. I know for a fact, working as a police officer, there's been more prayers said inside of a hospital than a church. That's just the plain truth. I've witnessed and been a part of some horrifying things, and I've seen more people really pray in hospitals than in a church. But yeah, in family, you can't get nowhere without family, and I don't necessarily mean your whether growing up family, but the family that you make once you grow up and all that. I think that has a bigger impact on you, because that old cliche he's talking about. You can't pick your family,
Right.
Yeah. But essentially, when you grow up, you become an adult and you form the person you are, and then you find somebody who can tolerate all your good, your bad, your indifferent, and you create your own. To me, that's what it is. I just, the meaning of life is just happiness. I mean, honestly, you can make all this money in the world and you can have your health and be tip-top shape, and then cross the road down here on 58 and a car will come along and smash you, and there you are. It's just, I just think we take life
For granted. Yeah.
Everything for granted. It took me until, well, heck, Ethan, I think I was in my 30s till I finally realized the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I stop and say a prayer and thank God for the ability to wake up, get out of bed, walk to the bathroom, brush my teeth, the ability to have hands, just living, being above ground and living, because I know there's a lot of people that don't have that can't do that. So it took me a long time, and I'm not this zenful person, but being grateful is something that we all really need to be more of.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll add another question.
All right.
Your family, you have kids, grandkids. If they're listening to this episode in 50 years, what would you want to tell them?
That's a tough one. What would I tell them in 50 years that are listening to this? I gave you the best I had.
Yeah.
I loved you as completely as anybody could love you to their ability. I never left nothing, held nothing back. If you know me and you get me, you're getting everything that I am. I don't pretend. So,
beautiful.
It's the best.
Thank you, Mr. Bolen. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. I really enjoyed it. And
yeah, thank you for having me. I just hope I didn't bore everybody with my story. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Any opportunity to be heard is awesome.